Welcome to GameSpot Live. I'm Greg Kasavin here to tell you all about Tekken 4 for the PS2, which is the latest in Namco's long-running 3D fighting series. Tekken 4 adds several new characters, some new gameplay twists, and has rather improved graphics and some new animations and plenty of new moves since its immediate predecessor, Tekken Tag Tournament. But otherwise, you'll find that it's a pretty similar game to what the series has established in the past. That said, if you haven't played Tekken in a while, or even if you have, you'll find that from a technical standpoint, Tekken 4 is just a great fighting game with really responsive controls, very different characters, and a lot to choose from, and lots and lots of different moves to master and to practice with. Sure, the game isn't radically different from the past couple of Tekkens, but who cares really? It's still just a lot of fun to play, and 3D fighting games just aren't that common these days, so we got to take what we can get. Tekken 4 initially has 10 selectable characters, though you can unlock about that many as you play through the arcade mode and the story mode. Several of these are entirely new. There are guys like Steve Fox, who's a British boxer who has a rather interesting fighting style in that he hardly ever uses kicks. There's also Craig Marduk, who's this big Vale Tudo fighter, kind of combining lots of really powerful punches and kicks as well as grappling moves. And there's Christy Montero, who basically is an attractive female replacement for Tekken 3's Eddie Gordo. She uses capoeira, the Brazilian style that looks as much like dancing as like a martial art. For the most part, Tekken 4 still plays like Tekken. The controls involve 4 buttons, left and right, punch and kick button, which can be used in different combinations to perform different combos and throws and stuff like that. As in previous Tekken games, none of the moves in Tekken 4 are particularly hard to execute, but characters have dozens or even more than 100 of them. So learning when and how to use each move is a real challenge, and there's a lot of depth in figuring out when and where to use all the different techniques. Also, characters now have a position switch move, which replaces one of their throw commands from previous games. This way you can quickly yank your opponent's arm and kind of swing him around behind you to put yourself in a more advantageous position and him in a worse one. That ties in with one of Tekken 4's other gameplay changes, which is the addition of closed arenas. In previous Tekken games, you were fighting on basically infinite planes. You could back up and run forward as far as you wanted to. Now every single arena takes place in a closed environment, so you can actually run your opponent up against a wall and set him up for really damaging combos that way. So once again, it's just a game with a lot of depth to it, and all the characters are really quite different. The roster in Tekken 4 is smaller than in Tekken Tag Tournament, the previous game, but what Namco did was basically remove all the characters who had very similar sets of moves. So this way, though you have a smaller selection of characters overall, they're all really quite different and quite interesting to learn and play. Tekken 4 is a pretty standard assortment of gameplay modes. The main attraction is called Story Battle, which basically gives each of the game's characters an introductory kind of storyboard plot sequence as well as an epilogue, and also a nice CG cutscene at the end. There are no unlockable bonus modes in Tekken 4 like there were in some of the other home versions of Tekken games, but there is one minigame that's available from the get-go called Tekken Force, which basically turns the game into like not really a side-scrolling, but like a weird sort of pseudo-isometric third-person scrolling 3D beat-em-up. It's actually quite fun and really pretty challenging too. And you'll like how even when there are tons of enemies on screen, the game's frame rate just never slows down. It's a pretty impressive showcase of what the PS2 can do. Actually, Tekken 4 is a really good-looking game all around. It's colorful. The character models are really detailed. You could clearly distinguish between different types of clothing textures and everything. There are lots of kind of pretty graphical effects going on. Some of the arenas look really good too, especially one that looks like it's ripped straight out of the movie Fight Club, where the arena is formed by basically a ring of cheering and jeering onlookers who you could actually punch by accident and knock down, so that's pretty entertaining. On the other hand, Tekken 4 doesn't sound all that great, which might not surprise you if you've played previous Tekken games. Basically, Tekken 4 recycles sound effects that you've been hearing possibly since 1994 when the original Tekken game came out in arcades. It's too bad that Namco keeps reusing some of the same sound effects, but to its credit, a lot of the speech is new, and for the first time in the series, characters have actual spoken dialogue, which does a lot to help their personalities. But you don't play fighting games for the music, you play them because of their depth and their gameplay and their characters, and Tekken 4 has all of that in droves. Again, if you've played a lot of Tekken in the past, this game isn't going to be radically different or let alone radically better, but it's a substantial visual overhaul. It's got a lot of new moves and strategies to learn, and it still plays as good as the series ever has, meaning it plays really excellent for the most part. So whether you're casually into fighting games or hardcore into them, you probably know by now that good fighting games are few and far between these days. And rest assured, though, that Tekken 4 is definitely one of the better ones to come around in years.